Hello, I'm Marty Grimes with the Santa Clara Valley Water District's Communications Unit, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar on the state of the drought. We know that you're all busy, so we want to get started right away. We also know that you all are experts in weather and climate and quite aware of California's drought conditions. What we thought would be helpful to you is to hear from our experts in water supply, planning, and water conservation. And we're doing this in the hope that you'll be able to use some of the things you hear today in your broadcasts to educate your viewers. We're going to have short presentations from two experts today, followed by a question and answer period. The first expert we have is Aaron Baker, who's the engineering manager of raw water operations here at the Water District. And also we have Jerry de la Piedra, who's the water use efficiency manager in our water supply planning and conservation unit. Here's a summary of the content of today's presentation. You'll first hear about the role of Santa Clara Valley Water District in water and drought management, and we'll talk about the current water supply conditions and where our water comes from here in Santa Clara County. And we'll talk about our water use reduction targets and how we set those targets. And we'll talk about local water use restrictions. Then we'll give you an update on how the South Bay has been doing with water savings in 2015, and we'll go over some of the water conservation programs your viewers might be interested in. And then we hope you'll be able to use some of the tips that we're going to give you at the end of this presentation. So at this point, I will transfer the mic over to Aaron Baker.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Aaron Baker, manager of raw water operations for the Santa Clara Valley Water District, and we're going to talk about how the Santa Clara Valley Water District is providing safe, clean water for the Santa Clara County in an extraordinary drought and beyond. The district has an integrated approach to managing water in the county. We provide clean, reliable water, flood protection, and healthy creeks and ecosystems. Today we're going to concentrate on clean, reliable water during this drought. One of the primary goals for providing safe, clean water for the county is protecting our groundwater basin. In this graph here, we show what the district has done over the years to protect our groundwater basin. You can see at the beginning the green line shows a lower population that then goes to a higher population. The orange line shows the land surface elevation, and that when we pump too much water out of the ground ground surface falls, and you can see that in some places it was up to 13 feet in San Jose between 1915 and 1970. And then the last part is the blue line, which is the groundwater elevation, and that's one of the key indicators that we use to understand how much water is in the drinking groundwater aquifer below us. So the district has done quite a few things, but the major things that was happening is you can see the groundwater started to fall into the 30s. We constructed some reservoirs that brought it back up into the 40s. Population growth then caused the groundwater to fall again, and then in the 60s we first took our deliveries of imported water from the state project. And then in the 80s, you can see it comes back up and then drops a little bit again, and we started taking our first deliveries from the federal project. And that put the water, so we enjoyed a relatively good groundwater level for the last 20 years or so. And then due to this drought, you can see that we've got a 33 feet of groundwater level dropping, and it's actually up to 60 or 75 feet in some places in Santa Clara County. So where does our water come from? In Santa Clara County, 55% of our water is imported. That's 40% of that water comes from the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta through the state and federal projects, and then 15% of that comes from the Hetch Hetchy system. The imported water through the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta relies on big reservoirs such as Shasta and Folsom reservoirs, and so the snowpack and other things make a big impact on maintaining water levels in those reservoirs so that they can maintain releases out of those reservoirs to provide continuous water to the Delta, to our county throughout the summer. 40% of our water is local. That's natural groundwater, or natural water that falls from the sky and then is replenished into the groundwater. The district also has 10 reservoirs which we then capture the water, and from there we can send it either to in-stream recharge, off-stream recharge, or even to our drinking water treatment plants. And then the last 5% is recycled water, and that is what we're calling our drought-proof supply. What that does is it takes water that was from the wastewater treatment plant, treats it even further, and is currently used for irrigation. But the district has an aggressive program to actually take and use more recycled water and actually use it possibly into our recharge basins. The district manages a very comprehensive water system throughout the county, and actually even some facilities outside the county. So again, I was talking about those 10 reservoirs. The district operates 10 reservoirs where we capture the local water, and then we can release that water at a slower rate so that it stays in the in-stream section of the channel that we know has gravels or is best for in-stream recharge. For streams that don't have a large recharge zone, we can actually divert it off of the stream and put it into the areas that we do know have great recharge zones. We also have 3 pump stations, 800 miles of streams, 142 miles of pipelines, 3 water treatment plants. And so what I was talking about earlier is that we can take both imported and local water and send it to our drinking water treatment plants. And so what happens is the retailers have 2 options usually. One is they could take the treated water from us, or they could pump it from the groundwater. So what we try to do to offset that groundwater pumping is offer treated drinking water to those retailers. One water purification center, as we talked about earlier, 5% of our water comes from recycled water. We're hoping to increase that further. The water purification center is a very advanced center that we have that takes recycled water and actually treats it to a level above drinking water standards, and we're piloting other uses, and hopefully would sometime into the future begin to use that water into our recharge basins. And then the 400 acres of recharge ponds. As I was talking about before, we can take both imported and local water and spread it into these recharge ponds. And over the years, we've found that these recharge ponds are the best way to filter the water through the down into the lower aquifers for the greatest benefit. Our current water supply conditions. So, as we were talking about before, 2 of our major sources of water are the imported water and the local surface water. So imported water-wise, we get water from the state and federal projects, and right now we have our current allocations are 20% or 25% of the contract. In any normal year, we can get 80% of the contract or 100% of the contract. So what we're looking at this year is grappling with, say our state water contract is 100,000 acre feet. And so normally we receive 80, 90, in a wet year 100%, so we're receiving 90,000 acre feet. Unfortunately this year we're only allocated 20,000 acre feet. So you can see that this is a fifth of what we would normally be looking at any given time. So unfortunately we have to ratchet things back, and some things such as our groundwater recharge program, we just don't have enough water to recharge as much as we normally would. And then local surface water. Our reservoirs are currently about 75% of their 20-year average, and that's looking pretty good. It's below average. And one of the things that you guys know is that last year was actually, for a water year, was almost an average year. But one of the things that really hurt us last year was that over half of the rainfall happened as you guys know, happened in December. And so those big short storms in December really didn't allow us to capture the water and get it into the off-stream recharge facilities that we really wanted to do. We prefer these much slower, slower storms that don't quite hit so hard at the same time, so we can efficiently capture the water and store it to have it for the future. As I was talking about, a lot of things I'm talking about are recharge operations. And one of the things that we were looking at, and that original thing that we're looking at before, was how do we keep the groundwater levels high and prevent the subsidence that did happen years ago. And so our basins are in a long-term balance due to this managed recharge. As you can see from the graph here for both North and South County, and I'll just talk about North County up here, is that in 2002 to 2011, we basically recharged between natural and managed recharge, basically recharged about the same that was being pumped out. In 2012, we were actually able to recharge a little more than was being pumped out. I apologize, the pumped out is the green line there. Then you can begin to see a gap in 2013. And then the big gap you begin to see is really apparent in 2014, and then we're hoping to close the gap in 2015. In 2014, one of the things that we saw was not only did we have much less water for recharge, but we also had a big increase in pumping. You can see that in 2014, that green line spikes way up there, and that's the highest we've seen in a number of years. One of the primary drivers behind that increased pumping was that we had to reduce our treated water deliveries because of the lack of local surface water, local and imported surface water, which caused the retailers to go to this go to the groundwater to make up that difference. Groundwater conditions. So I've been talking a lot about groundwater and how we use it to manage the water in Santa Clara County, and this kind of slide kind of sums some of the things up and how we're calling for our water use reductions and moving forward. The end of year groundwater storage. So what we have is we have an end of year groundwater storage indicator, and on the left hand side here we have our water shortage contingency plan stages. You can see that we have normal, which is above 300,000 acre feet, and then it goes to alert, then severe, then critical, and then of course emergency. And then you can see what happens is as we drop below this normal stage, we also have the increased risk of subsidence. So there was major amounts of subsidence that happened way back when in the 30s, 40s, and the district has been working hard to prevent that subsidence from occurring, and we haven't seen any real subsidence in the past 20 years or so. But what we're looking at now, or what we're monitoring very closely, is that as our water levels drop, we are at an increased risk for subsidence. And although we monitor these things and we're looking at these thresholds and we're approaching these thresholds, it's something that we're looking at very closely, and that's why we need the groundwater to come back up so that we don't reach those thresholds.
So what's the big deal with subsidence? Why should we care if there's subsidence?
So subsidence is actually the settling of the ground. So the water's being pumped out and these clays then settle. And what happens is they'll settle so much and compact so much that they become confined. And so even though we put the water back into the groundwater basin, it actually doesn't increase itself back up to the elevation it was before. So we're talking about an actual drop in the ground surface over a large area from pumping the water out. And as I was talking about before, in years past there were some areas that experienced over 10 feet of subsidence. So you can imagine if you had a drop of even a foot or something, you've got sanitary sewer lines, you've got building foundations, streets, all sorts of things. So subsidence is a very big issue for us, and something that we're monitoring closely and working hard to avoid. So in 2013, we ended the year at 340,000 acre feet. That's well in the normal range. And then in 2014, that was the year we talked about earlier, where we had an increased pumping and a decrease in groundwater recharge, and we actually dropped 80,000 acre feet. And you can see that it got us just into the alert range. And now we're here in 2015. So in 2015, we see a March 2015 projection that puts us in the critical. So what we do as part of our planning process is we forecast if we didn't get any water use reduction, what would happen to the groundwater level? And so there you can see it drops to the critical stage, and also at a much higher increased risk of subsidence. And so through that and through our water shortage contingency plan, the board has called for a 30% water use reduction and a restriction of 2 days a week for irrigation of landscaping. And then we'll follow up with one last part on 2015 is the June 2015 projection. So what we also done is that we've used actuals up to June 2015, and then we've projected it to the end of the year at an 18% reduction. And what we'll see here is that Jerry will talk a little bit better. We've been doing a little bit better than 18% lately, so hopefully this will be a little bit better. But you can see that we're back still in the severe range. Our goal, of course, is that we get us back up so that we're in that alert range and even higher if we could, because we also need to understand that, well, as you guys know, with the projected El Nino, things could be very good or very bad, and so we need to be prepared for 2016 in case it is, unfortunately, a very dry year. And with that, hopefully I haven't bored you too much with the groundwater conditions, and we will turn it over to Jerry to talk about the fun stuff.
Great, thank you, Aaron. Jerry De La Piedra with the Water District, and as he's been describing, and as all of you are very familiar, we are in this unprecedented drought. And because of that, the governor this year did something that the governor of California has never done before, and he's called for a statewide reduction of 25%. That is based on statewide conditions. So locally here, we are in a little bit different situation. Our Board of Directors, so the Santa Clara Valley Water District Board of Directors has called for a 30% reduction in water use in 2015. And that is based on everything that Aaron described earlier in the drop in our groundwater reserves and trying to avoid subsidence moving forward, and not knowing how long this drought's going to last, and realizing we need to get those groundwater levels back up to the normal stage, and also that it's probably going to take more than 1 year. This is going to take multiple years to recover.
So Jerry, I've heard that that there's the state board has issued anywhere from, say, like some guys say, oh, my city only needs 13%, but then the other cities are at 34%, and then we've got a 25% here, and then we've got a 30% here. How do all those things line up?
Yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, it is a little bit confusing. What the state has done in order to reach the 25% target that the governor's called for, the state board has set tiers, and the tiers are based on a water retailer, so an agency that provides water to the customers, the homeowners, the businesses, based on their residential per capita per day usage. So those that have a very low residential GPCD is what it's called, have a lower target to reach. They're in a lower tier. Those that have a very high GPCD, residential GPCD, have a higher target to reach. And it ranges in Santa Clara County. The low is 12%, the high is 32%. Now the way we look at it is those are the minimum that need to be required because that's based on statewide conditions. Then we look at what's happening here locally and our groundwater basin, the threat of subsidence, et cetera, and that we need to even go above and beyond that in terms of what we're calling for. And that's why our board of directors has called for a 30% reduction in water use. And you'll see in a few slides that most of the retailers, the water retailers here in Santa Clara County, have gone along with the 30% call. Again, the state board not only has set the tiers, but they've also adopted emergency regulations, which include additional water use restrictions, and I'll talk about a few of those in a minute. And then we also, the district, we track how each community is doing here locally. We have a table and a monthly report that documents how everybody's doing in terms of their water savings versus their target, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a few minutes. Again, in terms of the state board restrictions, you can see them on your slide, hopefully. There's the ones on the left are ones that apply to everybody in the state of California, and they include things like no washing down hard surfaces, driveways, sidewalks, things like that. No irrigation runoff, that's a common one, especially here in Santa Clara County. No watering or irrigating during or 48 hours immediately after a measurable rainfall. And the way we're defining that here in Santa Clara County, for the most part, is a quarter of an inch. So when Santa Clara County receives a quarter of an inch, hopefully we're hoping that you can help inform your customers to not irrigate during and 48 hours immediately following that. And then there's also some restrictions for businesses. You can see them on the right there. Restaurants only serve water on request, and hotels, motels must offer their guests the option of reusing towels and linens. These are the statewide regulations. In addition, our retailers and the cities in Santa Clara County, as well as the county itself, have adopted ordinances with additional restrictions, other things that they've put into place. And on our website, we have a link. We have a drought page with links that show that link to each of the city's websites, what they're calling for, and the restrictions that are in place for those areas. Getting back to the savings that's being achieved, here's all of the water retailers in Santa Clara County. For the most part, they're municipalities or the cities. There are a few private water companies, such as San Jose Water Company. They're the top one there that's listed. You can see what they're calling for in the second column. Again, most of them are calling for a 30% reduction in water use. Their cumulative use, so how much water they've used in 2015. So you can just kind of see which ones are the big ones and which ones are the small ones. And then the last three columns are the savings that's being achieved. So for the month of April, you can see each individual retailer, and then the bottom row is the total, or 24%. The next column over is for the month of May, and you can see 35% was achieved. So as Aaron mentioned, cumulative we have achieved 18%, but the last 2 months have actually been pretty good months, 25% or 24% and 35%. So I think hopefully we think this is trending now in the right direction, and for the rest of the year the community will continue to respond. But we are hoping to partner with you and help get the word out and the message out that we do need to continue with these reductions.
Speaking of all the retailers together and looking at that, I think one of the things that we're looking at, or one of the big things, would be reducing outside landscape irrigation. And I think we've been able to work, and there's almost a countywide outdoor watering schedule?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the savings during a drought, the short-term savings, is going to come from the landscape sector. That's where a lot of water uses and a lot of waste, unfortunately, is happening. And so our board of directors, again, called for the 2-day-a-week watering schedule. And we've been working with all the cities and the water retailers that are listed here. And for the most part, we have pretty good coverage throughout Santa Clara County with the same 2-day-a-week schedule. So odd addresses, or if a site doesn't have an address, a street address, their days that they're allowed to water are Monday and Thursday. If a site has an even address, so if it ends in 2, 4, 6, 8, those sites are allowed to water Tuesdays and Fridays. And so we're hoping that you can help get the message out, so on those days you can remind those addresses which days they're allowed to water. We also have a lot of conservation programs to assist the public in becoming more water efficient. You can see we have residential programs, we have landscape programs, we have programs for businesses. We call them commercial, industrial, institutional. We do have a little bit of ag in Santa Clara County still, so we have some programs to try to help out the growers and the farmers. A lot of outreach and education. And then because of the drought, our board of directors has been very supportive and have approved additional funding to double many of our rebate programs. And I'll talk about many of these in the next few slides. Our programs for homeowners include a free WaterWise house call program. I recommend everybody sign up for this program. It's, again, a free program where we'll send a trained technician and they'll do a thorough evaluation of everywhere the homeowner uses water. They'll start with the water meter, show them how to read the meter, how to look for leaks. They'll go inside, check the shower heads, faucet aerators, toilet flappers. They'll change all of those if they need to be changed and replaced, all for free. They'll do, again, a thorough outdoor evaluation, and they'll even calculate a personalized irrigation schedule based on your irrigation system, and then we'll program the irrigation controller if the homeowner lets us. Again, all for free. Great program. We recommend everybody signs up for this.
And again, that's just a WaterWise house call program. They're not there to judge or look at anything that you've done there or report back. It's just there to give you advice to help, right?
Exactly, yeah. It's strictly educational. We don't report out to anybody. It's just, it stays with us. We give you a report of what we found at the site that stays with you, and that's as far as it goes. We have a lot of rebate programs. We have a gray water rebate program for taking that rinse water from the washing machine and diverting that to the landscape. And this is one of the programs that was temporarily increased during the drought. Before it was $100, it's currently $200. We have rebates for high-efficiency toilets and washing machines. We have a landscape rebate program. This program has been very popular this year. It has two components. It has a lawn conversion component, so converting your lawn to low water use plants. This is another one that was temporarily increased during the drought. Before it was Before it was $1 a square foot for conversion. Now it's $2 a square foot. We also have some of our retailers, actually about 6 or 7 of them now, that add to our rebates. So in those areas, it's actually $3 a square foot for converting. And then we have rebates for high efficiency irrigation equipment, such as weather-based irrigation controllers, irrigation nozzles, things like that. And then we give out free devices as well, free shower heads, aerators. All people have to do is give us a call. Program for businesses, we have a free high-efficiency toilet and urinal installation program. So this is where we'll go out, we'll take out the old toilets, the old urinals, and actually install the high-efficiency versions, and we'll do it all for free. Clothes washers, this is another program temporarily increased. It was $400, now it's $800. Rebates for submeters, so a mobile home park, apartment complex. If they have one master meter and they want to install submeters, so each individual unit is responsible for their water use, they can get rebates. Ice machines, food steamers, and then free pre-rinse sprayers, another thing that we hand out for free. And then we do a lot of outreach and education. You can see Rain or Shine, that was our winter campaign. We actually have a new campaign that's going right now. We have buckets, yard signs that we hand out for free. You can see in the top right there, brown is the new green yard sign. We also have new ones, Fighting the Drought, Inside and Out. So we'll be handing those out this summer. And then we have a webpage, Drought Watch. Has all the information that Aaron talked about earlier, all the information I'm talking about is all available on this one website.
And we would appreciate anything you could do to help us get our message out and let your viewers know that these signs and other outreach materials are available.
We actually have a new website too this year, watersavings.org, which is a very simplified version and has links to all the things that we're talking about. A new program that we started during the drought, we started last year actually, is a water waste inspector program. And so to help the retailers in the cities respond to all the reports of water waste that are coming in, we hired inspectors. And these are strictly educational. We don't issue signs or fines or citations. They go out there, they talk to the homeowner, they talk to the business, inform them, remind them we are in a drought if they don't already know, remind them the restrictions that are in place, and then programs and the technical assistance that the district offers to assist them be more water efficient. You can see there's multiple ways people can report water waste, and we're hoping you can help get the word out. There's a phone number, a drought hotline. There's an email. And then there's on our website, we have Access Valley Water Portal. And then we also have an app for smartphones. Again, Access Valley Water that people can download for free and use it to report water waste.
Now, Jerry, these you can leave your name to be contacted, or you could also do this anonymously?
Yeah, it can be anonymous if the person doesn't want to know or doesn't want to be contacted or doesn't want to know that they were the one that reported the waste. It'll be strictly anonymous. And we don't, when we go out and we talk to the homeowner or the business that was reported, we never share the information of who made the report. That is always confidential. Now, moving forward, we don't know when this drought's going to end, and we don't know when the next drought is going to come. So we're also looking long-term and making the investments we need to make now to be better prepared. And that includes doubling our water conservation program. We've done a lot over the last 15, 20 years, but we need to do more, and we need to get the word out, and we need to make conservation a way of life. We also are going to be rebuilding and repairing our infrastructure, dams, pipelines, water treatment plants to improve reliability. We're also going to be, as Aaron mentioned, investing in recycled water and purified water. It's a drought-proof supply, and we really see that as the future in Santa Clara County, and eventually using that to recharge our groundwater basins.
Right.
And then, of course, at the same time, aggressively protecting water quality. Now, some tips that we're hoping that you'll share with your viewers. Again, the outdoor watering schedule, 2 days a week, Santa Clara County, odd addresses, no addresses, Monday, Thursday, even addresses, Tuesday, Friday. Also, no watering during the day. It's not, it's windy, the evaporation is up, water at night, early morning, things like that.
And then after rain, too?
After rain, yeah. During or 48 hours after a measurable rain, again, 1/4 of an inch, remind your viewers to not irrigate. Limit showers to 5 minutes or less, an indoor tip. Use your bucket in the shower as it's heating up, capture that cold water, use it to flush your toilet, to water plants, your lawn, whatever you need it to. Let's see what else. Run only full loads of laundry and your dishwasher, and then turn your water off when you're shaving or brushing your teeth. Just some basic tips that everybody can do. They're easy, simple, but yet they save water.
And more tips are available on the websites you mentioned earlier.
savingwater.org has a lot of tips, a lot of program information, how to report water waste, things like that. So with that, I think we'll turn it over to Marty.
Yes, and that URL is actually watersavings.org.
Thank you.
And at this point, I want to thank Aaron and Jerry for giving presentations this morning, and I hope it's been useful for everyone. If you have any questions, you can text it right now to 408-681-9265. And while you're doing that, I'll remind you that we have a monthly e-newsletter. And to join that newsletter, you can text 22828 to Valley Water, or just email us at info@valleywater.org. So at this point, we don't have any questions that have come in. This webinar will be available for viewing afterwards. So if you have colleagues that are obviously not available right now, please point them to the page you're on so they can, or valleywater.org, we will have this available for viewing afterwards. So with that, since we don't have any questions from the participants, we will wrap up. And again, thank you all for participating, and we hope it's useful. If it was useful, please let us know, and we will certainly consider doing this again in the future. Thank you very much.